There is a place on Earth where 40% of the population still lives in tents, where a child's first toy is a horse. Where the sky is so large, it makes you question your own scale. That place is Mongolia. Here the grass rolls toward every horizon, green in summer, gold in autumn, white in winter, always moving, never ending. And that feeling of being alone, it's not a feeling, it's a fact. Mongolia is the least populated country on Earth, with only 2 people per square kilometer. This is a land of 4 distinct faces. The northern taiga, where reindeer herders move through large forests older than memory. The central steppe, where the great herds of gazelle still flow across grasslands that once carried Genghis Khan's army. The southern Gobi, where singing dunes rise from rock and dinosaur bones sleep beneath flaming cliffs. The western Altai, where snow leopards walk ridges that separate nations and Kazakh hunters ride with eagles on their arms. Most travelers never touch these places. They fly into Ulaanbaatar and leave without knowing what lies beyond the paved roads. We will go there now, not to the cities, to the valleys where the earth still speaks in its old language. Northern Mongolia. Northern Mongolia begins where the steppe surrenders to the taiga. Here, at the southern edge of Siberia's Great Forest, a different Mongolia takes root. Lake Khuvsgul sits at the heart of this region. 136 kilometers of water, so pure you drink it without thought. The Mongolians call it the Blue Pearl, but pearls are small and passive. This lake holds nearly 70% of the nation's fresh water. It is one of 17 ancient lakes on Earth, more than 2 million years old, a depth of 267 meters hiding waters that have never known pollution. From its southern end, the Egg River begins a 1,000-kilometer journey to Lake Baikal, connecting 2 sister lakes across the Russian border. The mountains around it do not announce themselves. They simply rise, the Burankan Range pushing toward the sky until Munksaridag pierces clouds at 3,492 meters. Snow clings to its upper flanks, even in August. Below, the forest closes in. Siberian larch dominates, its needles soft and bright in summer, gold in autumn, gone in winter when the trees stand like skeletons waiting. Permafrost lies just beneath the soil, keeping roots shallow and the ground spongy underfoot. The Darkhad Depression spreads west of the lake, a valley so remote it has no roads. Here, among pine-dotted plains and alpine lakes, the last reindeer herders of Mongolia make their lives. They call themselves the Sartan, which means people who have reindeer, and their numbers have dwindled to fewer than 50 families. They do not eat their reindeer. The animals carry them, give them milk, hold their spiritual center. The Sartan move 5 or 6 times each year, following the seasons and the grazing. Their teepee-like orts, made of birch bark and canvas, folding and rising across the taiga. They speak Tuvan among themselves, their shamanic traditions older than Buddhism in this land, their rituals still tied to the mountains and the rivers that hold spirits. The wildlife here moves without fences. Musk deer hide in dense thickets, their fanged faces strange and ancient. Wolverines cross valleys that take them weeks to traverse. Siberian moose wade through shallow lakes, antlers heavy with velvet. Brown bears dig for roots along stream beds, their footprints pressed into mud that hardens by evening. In the higher elevations, Argali sheep watch from cliffs, their horns curling tight against the sky. Ibex scramble where no human could follow. Winter transforms everything. The lake freezes solid between January and April, its surface becoming a highway of ice thick enough to hold trucks. The freeze does not come slowly. One night in the lunar month, the water turns to glass, with a sound like thunder rolling across mountains. Those who hear it are considered blessed. Then the fog descends, thick and white, erasing the boundary between water and sky, between earth and cloud. The reindeer herders move to lower valleys. The larch trees stand bare. The light, what little there is, holds blue for a few hours each day and then vanishes. This is not the Mongolia of the Gobi Desert or the Central Steppe. It is green. It is wet. It is a place where the air smells of pine and lake water, where the wind carries nothing but itself, where a single valley holds more wildness than entire provinces in the south. The herders here do not follow horses across open grass. They follow reindeer through forests so thick you lose direction within minutes. They know every stream, every pass, every clearing where the moss grows thick enough for their animals to graze. Most travelers never see this place. It is too far, too hard to reach. But those who make the journey find a Mongolia that exists nowhere else. Water you drink from the lake without worry. Silence that settles into your bones. A way of life that has persisted for centuries and is now fading, family by family, reindeer by reindeer, into the same forests that have always held them. Now we turn our faces south, where the last reindeer track dissolves into grass that never learned the meaning of edge. Central and Eastern Mongolia. Central and Eastern Mongolia is where the sky finally meets the earth on its own terms. The forests of the north thin here, giving way to something older and more patient. The steppe begins where the last larch tree surrenders and does not stop until the horizon folds in on itself. This is the largest expanse of intact temperate grassland left on Earth, stretching across the eastern corner of the country into a rolling plain that feels like the world before fences. The Dornod region alone covers more than 2 million hectares of it, a sea of feather grass and wormwood that waves in wind no mountain breaks. From the air, it looks like skin stretched across bone. The old volcanic hills rising in low domes. The ancient river channels drawing silver lines through green and gold. The Mongolian gazelle still moves through this land in herds that number in the hundreds of thousands. They flow across the steppe like water, finding its level, their pale backs catching light, their hooves drumming a rhythm older than any human memory. In spring, the calves drop in tall grass. In winter, the herds face the white storms together, huddled in depressions where the wind cannot reach. The Khenti Mountains rise in the north of this region, not jagged like the Altai, but rounded, ancient, worn smooth by ice that left long ago. The Onon River begins here, on the eastern slopes of these mountains, a clear thread that will travel more than 1,000 kilometers to join the Shilka, and eventually the Amur. On its upper banks, a boy named Temujin grew up, the place still marked in the way the grass bends, in the names the herders still use. Westward, toward the Khangai Range, the steppe changes. The Orkhon River cuts through valleys that have held empires. The Uyghurs built their capital here. The Mongols built Karakorum. Now only stone turtles guard the site. The walls gone. The streets return to grass. The Erde-Nazu monastery rose from the ruins. Its white walls and Tibetan roofs a different kind of permanence, but even that is only 4 centuries old against the valley's millennia. The herders here move with the seasons still. 20,000 families live across the eastern steppe, their gers appearing in river valleys each spring, disappearing into autumn passes each fall. They know the land by the taste of the water, by the direction the feather grass bends, by the color of the soil under their horses' hooves. Their flocks move with them, sheep and goats dotting the hillsides, their bells ringing across distances that make sound seem like the only measure of space. The Komintal Plain, where the steppe meets the desert's edge, holds something rarer. The Przewalski's horse runs there now, reintroduced to the land where its bones were found, the only true wild horse left in the world. They gather in small bands, stallions herding mares through valleys that have seen horses for 10,000 years. The great bustard nests in the tall grass. The lesser kestrel hunts over the sagebrush flats. The black-tailed gazelle watches from ridgelines before vanishing into draws where no road goes. Naadam arrives each summer on the 11th and 12th of July, when the steppe is green and the whole country turns toward celebration. It is called Aryan Gurvan Naadam, the 3 games of men, though the name holds less weight now than the games themselves. Before the 1920s, it marked births, weddings, victories in battle. Now it marks independence, but the spirit has not changed. Wrestling stands at the center. 9 rounds, sometimes more. The wrestlers wear brief vests and tight briefs, their bodies built for leverage, and when they meet on the field, there is no weight class, no time limit, only the earth beneath them, and the crowd pressing close. It is the favorite sport of a people who have always measured strength by what it can carry across a mountain, or hold against a winter wind. Archery draws fewer eyes, but opens its lanes to anyone who can draw a bow. Women stand beside men. Children stand beside grandmothers. The arrows are fletched with eagle feathers. The targets are leather cylinders stuffed with straw. And the sound of a hit is not a snap, but a dull thud that travels across the valley like a stone dropped into still water. The horse races are the oldest. The secret history of the Mongols names them. Marco Polo wrote of them. The conditions have not changed since. The races run across the open steppe. No track, no rails, just a starting line and a finish line, and the distance between them measured by the age of the horses. 2-year-olds run 10 kilometers. 5-year-olds run 25. The jockeys are children, 5 years old or 7 or sometimes younger. Their small bodies barely weight on the horses' backs. At the finish, no one celebrates the rider. The horse carries the honor. A song rises for the winners, but another song rises for the 1-year-old that finishes last. The horse called Bayan Kodud, full stomach, because it ran without winning, and still returned to the people who sent it, because in a land where the next year is a day away, coming home is its own victory. This is not dramatic country. There are no fjords, no glaciers, no peaks that pierce clouds. The beauty here is in what is not there. No forests to block the wind. No hills to break the light. The sun sets across the eastern steppe for what feels like hours, the clouds catching color after the disk is gone. The whole sky a slow burn of orange and purple. And the deep blue that comes after. The night brings stars without competition. No city lights bleed into the dark. The Milky Way splits the sky from one horizon to the other, and the constellations look close enough to touch. Herders read the stars, the way farmers read the ground. They know when to move by the position of the plow. They know when winter will break, by the rising of certain groups before dawn. This land holds the memory of everything that passed through it. The Xiongnu tombs dot the hillsides, stone mounds that have not been opened, their contents unknown. The deer stones stand in valleys, carved with images of flying deer and warriors, their meanings lost, but their presence felt. The steppe does not forget. It simply waits, patient and vast, holding what it has been given until the wind takes it back. Let the steppe fall away behind us, its feather grass whispering goodbye. Ahead, the dunes are already singing, and a red cliff waits to burn in silence. Southern Mongolia, Gobi region. The Gobi is not a desert, the way most people imagine one. There are no endless seas of sand, no heat that shimmers without relief. This is a cold desert, a high desert, a place where winter temperatures fall to 40 below and summer sun bakes the ground until it cracks like old pottery. The Gobi covers nearly 1.3 million square kilometers across southern Mongolia and northern China. But the Mongolian portion alone spans 500,000, a vastness that contains more variety than any single word can hold. Sand dunes rise in some valleys, rocky mountains cut the sky in others. Dry riverbeds trace ancient paths across plains that look empty until you walk them and find life hiding in every shadow. Kongarin Els are the singing dunes, a crescent of sand that stretches more than 100 kilometers across the northern edge of the desert. The dunes rise to nearly 300 meters, their ridges sharp against the blue, their slopes shifting with every wind. When the wind blows just right, the sand sings. A low hum builds and travels across the valley, a sound that seems to come from the earth itself. Herders say the dunes are calling to each other. They have heard it for generations and still cannot explain it. Yolin Nam cuts through the Gobi Gurvansaikan mountains like a wound that never healed. The name means Vulture Valley, named for the lammergeier that nests on its cliffs, its wings spanning nearly 3 meters against the rock. Here, in the heart of the desert, ice accumulates in the narrow gorge and lingers well into summer. You walk through a canyon where the walls rise sheer on both sides, the air cool and damp. And then you see it, a field of ice that should not exist. It melts slowly, the water feeding streams that support wildflowers and birds and marmots that have learned to be fearless in this place where few humans come. Bayanzag, the flaming cliffs, holds something else entirely. The red sandstone catches the setting sun and burns, orange and crimson and deep purple bleeding across the rock face. But the real treasure lies beneath. Here, in 1922, a team of paleontologists found the first dinosaur eggs ever discovered. Velociraptor skeletons lay where they died, preserved in sand that buried them 70 million years ago. The cliffs still hold fossils. They erode from the rock after each rain, fragments of bone and eggshell scattered across the desert floor. A graveyard so vast it has not finished giving up its dead. Chagan Suvarga rises from the eastern Gobi like a ruin built by giants. White cliffs layered with red and orange stretch for 400 meters, their walls cut by wind into shapes that look like stupas, like temples, like a city abandoned by something that was never human. From the top, the desert opens in every direction. You see nothing but land and sky, and the slow work of time written in stone. The wildlife here is scarce but present. Snow leopards hunt in the mountains, their spotted coats blending into shadow, their presence known only by the tracks they leave in snow that falls even in the Gobi. Argali sheep watch from high ridges, their horns curling in great spirals that take years to grow. Wild Bactrian camels roam the most remote valleys, fewer than 1,000 left in the world, their two humps storing fat for journeys across land that offers nothing. The Gobi bear, the Mazalai, is rarer still. Only a few dozen remain, the only bear species that lives in desert, surviving on roots and berries and the occasional marmot. The herders here follow different rhythms. They keep Bactrian camels, not horses. The camels carry them across distances that take days, their wide feet spreading on sand, their patience endless. Families move with the seasons, their jers appearing in valleys where wells still hold water, disappearing when the grazing gives out. They know every spring, every pass, every place where the ground holds moisture beneath the dry surface. They watch the skies for dust storms that can bury a camp in hours. They watch their animals for signs of weather the forecast never predicts. Night falls hard in the Gobi. The temperature drops 40 degrees from the day's high. The wind picks up and carries the cold through everything. But the sky opens. No city lights compete with what hangs above. The Milky Way is not a faint band, but a river of light so bright it casts shadows. The constellations look close enough to touch. Herders read them the way farmers read the ground. They know when to move by the position of certain stars. They know when winter will break by the rising of others before dawn. This is the Gobi that most never see. Not the tourist camps with their camel rides and souvenir fossils, but the silence of the flaming cliffs at sunset when the red rock burns and no one else is there. The ice of Yolin Am in July. Cold air rising from the gorge while the desert bakes beyond. The tracks of a snow leopard across a ridge you will never see again. The quiet that settles over everything when the wind stops and the desert holds its breath, and you realize how small you are against something that has been here since before humans learned to walk. Now we climb toward peaks that never lost their ice, where an eagle's shadow moves across 3 nations. Western Mongolia. Western Mongolia begins where the paved roads end. The last asphalt gives way 300 kilometers before the first real mountains, and from there, the land takes over. 4 provinces spread across this western edge: Bayan-Ulgi, Hovd, Uvs, Zavkhan, holding fewer than 300,000 people in an area larger than Great Britain. They are scattered, these people, their jurs appearing in river valleys like mushrooms after rain, disappearing into autumn passes when winter breathes down from Siberia. The Altai Mountains form the spine here, a range that separates Mongolia from China and Russia with peaks that never soften. 8 of the country's 10 highest mountains sit in this region, and the tallest of them all, Tavan Bogd, rises 4,374 meters where the 3 borders meet. The name means 5 saints, and the peaks hold that holiness in their permanence. Snow does not leave their upper flanks. Glaciers spill from their shoulders, the Potanin Glacier alone stretching 14 kilometers across rock that has not felt the sun in millennia. Below these peaks, the lakes gather. Khoton, Kurgan, and Dayan sit in the national park's heart. Their waters so clear, you see the bottom at 20 meters. They freeze in October and do not thaw until June, becoming highways of ice that connect valleys otherwise separated by days of walking. The rivers that feed them run milky with glacial silt, braiding across valleys where the only tracks are wolf and ibex and the occasional snow leopard moving between ridges. The wildlife here is rare and reclusive. Snow leopards hunt in the Khuvsgul Mountains, a strictly protected area of 659 square kilometers where the cats move through rock faces that seem impossible. Argali sheep watch from cliffs, their horns curling so heavy they sometimes break in fights. Ibex scatter across slopes too steep for any human to follow. The Tuvan herders in Uvs share their valleys with lynx and Cossack fox, and the great bustard that nests in the tall grass before flying south. The people here are not Mongolians in the way the steppe understands it. Kazakhs dominate Bayan Olgi, their Turkic language filling markets, their mosques standing beside Buddhist stupas. They hunt with golden eagles, a tradition passed from father to son for perhaps 4,000 years. The eagles are taken as chicks from nests on cliffs, trained for a decade, released back to the wild when they have earned their freedom. Watching one fly is to watch something that has not changed since the Scythians rode these valleys. The bird sits on a woman's arm now sometimes, the old rules shifting, but the moment it launches remains the same. Hovd province holds 17 ethnic groups, more than anywhere in Mongolia. Zachin and Torgud and Urld and Uryankai, each with their own patterns on their deal collars, their own melodies in their throats singing, their own names for the passes and rivers their families have crossed for generations. You hear the difference in their speech. You see it in the cut of their jers. You taste it in the dried curd they offer when you stop. Because stopping is the custom. Because hospitality here is not kindness, but necessity, in a land where the next year might be a day away. The petroglyphs tell the older story. More than 10,000 cave drawings stretch across 15 kilometers of the Chagan Salar Valley. Images carved into rock over 15,000 years. Mammoths with spears in their sides. Hunters on horseback. Deer that seem to fly. Their antlers branching into shapes no deer has ever grown. The drawings layer on top of each other. Centuries of people leaving their mark in the only permanent thing in this landscape. The valleys change with altitude. Forest grows where the mountains catch enough moisture. Larch and Siberian pine standing in stands so thick you cannot see through them. Above the tree line, the alpine meadows open, wildflowers blooming in the weeks after snowmelt. The color so intense it seems artificial. Higher still, bare rock and scree and ice that never melts, the peaks that give the range its name. Khuvsgul Lake sits in the northern depression, a saltwater sea so large it influences the climate for 100 kilometers. Its shores are barren, its water too saline for anything but brine shrimp. But the wetlands around it hold birds that migrate from 6 continents. Demoiselle cranes gather by the thousands in autumn, their grey bodies rising in columns that spiral against the sky before they turn south. The lake does not freeze completely even in January, its salt content too high for ice to hold. This is the most remote Mongolia, the Mongolia that requires weeks of travel, that punishes mistakes with isolation, that offers its beauty only to those willing to earn it. The mountains do not accommodate. The passes close with snow that falls in August and does not melt until June. The distances swallow whole days and ask for more. But those who come find something the steppe cannot give. Verticality, rarity. A place where the earth still builds itself, where glaciers still move, where a Kazakh hunter can stand on a ridge with his eagle and look across 3 countries and feel, for a moment, that he holds the oldest thing left in this world. If you enjoyed this journey, your support means a lot. Like, share, and subscribe to discover more documentaries like this one.